Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Santa Clara City Council meeting. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a council member that's going to read it? I will read the statement of values. As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interests of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Mayor, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
No, we've read the statement of values. We're going to go now into roll call.
Vice Mayor Hardy. Vice Mayor Hardy. She muted.
Virtually present.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
Present.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Watanabe.
Here, present.
Thank you. Councilmember Shahal.
Remotely present.
And Mayor Gilmore.
Here.
Thank you. I'll read the announcement.
Yes, please.
AB 23 announcement, members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, Sports and Open Space Authority, and Housing Authority are entitled to receive $30 for each attended meeting. Statement of behavioral standards. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome and thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Assistant City Clerk. So good evening and welcome to today's City Council meeting. We are taking unprecedented steps for the safety of everyone who might participate in today's meeting as we comply with the County of Santa Clara's Public Health Department's order and guidance to prevent the slow spread of the novel coronavirus, or COVID-19, as many have named it. I want to first of all thank all Santa Clarans for your efforts in following the very serious steps we've all been taking as we shelter in place and only conduct essential activities that are critical for the safety and health of our community. We are practicing social distancing during this public health emergency, and I heard the governor today say he described social distancing as also physical distancing, so they're one and the same. As with the last few council meetings, you will notice we will continue to practice strict measures in the council chambers as well. Similar to last week, I'm the only elected official in the council chambers in person, while my colleagues have, as you have heard, have all called into this meeting, and we're hoping the next meeting you'll be able to see them as well. You will also note that there are very few of us in the city council chambers, no more than 10 at a time, in accordance with the recommendations of the COVID-19 White House Task Force. We have also opened additional space in the city's cafeteria for members of the public, so they have an opportunity to speak if they do come down to City Hall. We have implemented strict social distancing measures in the cafeteria as well. In addition to the social distancing, all of us in city government have been practicing frequent hand washings and environmental cleaning, including the council chambers today, as the public health community has frequently reminded us to do. We are going to hear a rather lengthy presentation from our city manager to let the community know what's been happening. It seems things change by not only the day, but by the hours. So she'll give us a pretty thorough update on what's happening. But before we go to that, I'd like to speak to the community regarding a serious matter that has recently been brought to my attention. Unfortunately, as a result of some high-level U.S. officials using the term Chinese virus or Wuhan virus, there have been reports of harassment and attacks on our fellow community members who are or who appear to be of Chinese or Asian descent. Stigmatization in any form invites racial discrimination, social polarization, and violence. We must condemn all forms of discrimination and stand in solidarity with all members of our community while together we face the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you hear or see or witness any of this, please contact our Santa Clara Police Department because it is entirely unacceptable and will not be tolerated here in our community. So as mayor of this wonderful city of Santa Clara, I'm proud of the diverse cultures represented by the residents who choose to live, work, and do business here. So let's all remember that now is a time for unity and solidarity and not division and stigmatization. So with that being said, I would like to move to hear our city manager, Deanna Santana's report on COVID-19 and an update. City manager.
Good evening. I too am participating remotely this evening, and I have many topics to provide, both some good news as well as some bad. We are now entering our third week of the city for only providing essential services to the community. We are also starting to see a significant rise in the number of coronavirus cases at Santa Clara County. As of 5 p.m. March 29th, the County Public Service is reporting 848 confirmed COVID-19 cases and a total of 28 deaths. Today, our County Public Health Officer, Dr. Clara Cody, announced the extension of the shelter-at-home order till at least May 3rd. The state's order continues to be indefinite with respect to a termination date of a shelter-at-home directive. We are continuing to uphold both the county and the state orders. We urge residents to take the stay-at-home order seriously and only leave their homes for essential reasons, such as to buy groceries or pick up medical prescriptions. I want to change focus to the Federal Medical Station in Santa Clara Convention Center. Last week, as we announced, the county made a media tour of the FMS and began publicizing that it was going to be opening an FMS at our convention center. That is still in process of being set up inside, and the FMS will serve less acute COVID-19 cases and provide increased capacity to our healthcare system. We anticipate that the FMS will become operational as early as tomorrow and escalate into full operation by next week, although we have also received information that the operations may be delayed up till next week. So we're still receiving clarification from the county. In terms of our supplemental food distribution program, our meal distribution program is going quite strong. I must take a moment and recognize our employees who have served as disaster service workers and have risen to the occasion to provide food to our most needy in our community. They were out safely and full force for the Healthy Meals Santa Clara program for children in need on Thursday. They distributed weekend meal packages at several school locations and at the senior center. Following the meal distribution for children, staff turned around and distributed nearly 700 weekend meals to seniors, including those that are homebound on Friday. Our goal for this week is to push out 8,000 meals. At the end of my comments, we will share a video about last week's distribution activity And I would like to thank Mayor Gilmore for always being available at our request to make a video and push out information to the community, but also to council members O'Neill and Watanabe, who have each volunteered the past weeks as well as with Mayor Gilmore. There's a little bit more good news in terms of our Silicon Valley Power. As a city, we understand the financial hardships that are being felt by many in the community as day-to-day activities, including work, comes to a halt. As a result, our electric utility, Silicon Valley Power, is providing a one-time $30 environmental credit on all residential bills. This funding is coming from Silicon Valley Power's Public Benefits Program. The environmental discount is covered under the mandated program cost as part of the approved budget and falls within Public Benefit Program 2125. There are some potential COVID financial impacts that are becoming more and more clearly as the days go by. And speaking of finances, we continue to monitor the COVID-19 impact. Right now, we can determine that there will be significant impacts on our TOT revenue, sales tax, property tax, as well as a reduced SVP in lieu contribution, which will be matched with likely increased costs for CalPERS due to lower returns of investment. Based on these projections, the drop in revenues could result in a one-time general fund shortfall between $8 to $10 million for this fiscal year alone. Additionally, the fiscal year 2021, our initial projections are ranging in the amount of $18 to $22 million. And as you recall, we were projecting a $4.8 million shortfall when we reported out in January 2020. This shortfall will have to be resolved with ongoing resources or revenue or expenditure solutions. We have begun the process of tightening our expenditures through a hiring freeze. Additional expenditure control measures have been developed and were released today to departments. Because we have built up an approximately $80 million one-time reserve, we can use some of those reserves to bridge the gap in the current year and fiscal year 2021. But our focus will now change from a growth strategy to one that is focused on retaining services for our community. We are in process of completing the proposed budget and will be able to discuss change strategies in coming weeks. More information will be provided about the significant economic impact of COVID-19, and we are similar to many other municipal agencies that are grappling with this new sudden impact. Unemployment numbers also continue to rise. In fact, they are skyrocketing nationally. For the week ending March 21st, 3.3 million Americans filed for unemployment help. Last week, Governor Gavin Newsom said California passed the 1 million mark in terms of the number of claims just since March 13th. And the Federal Reserve estimate is that the projected total employment reductions of 47 million, which would translate into a 32% unemployment rate. This too will further exacerbate our local government services and availability of resources. In addition, last week, the state passed some new worker protection laws, and we worked quickly to move in and begin to implement them. The new legislation is called Families First Corona Response Act and will become effective tomorrow, April 1st through December 31st, 2020. We have spent many hours going through the law and determining its implementation. The Families First Act provides up to 80 hours of paid sick leave for full-time and part-time employees for specified reasons related to COVID-19. Employees will be eligible for expanded family and medical leave in which an employee is unable due to a bona fide need to leave to care for a child who's in school or for child care provider if they're closed or unavailable for reasons related to COVID-19. The city is currently revising its human resources policies to incorporate this act. I want to thank our HR department and particularly Director Araceli Acevedo and Assistant City Manager Nadine Nader, as well as Sue Reuter in the City Attorney's Office for putting in place their perspective of how to implement the law and then following up with the administrative processes and policies to comply in short order. Our local businesses have also stepped up. We're hearing from local businesses that want to make our employees they want to make our employees make sure that we have the resources that we need. For example, Ms. Diana Ding of the U.S.-China Chamber of Commerce, Silicon Valley, has provided us with 1,500 face masks with 1,000 specifically for the police department. And just yesterday, Intel Corporation also contacted me about how they can help, and we were quick to submit our requests. It is inspiring to see so many wanting to help one another as we fight the pandemic as a community. And while all of this has been going on, we haven't forgotten our usual business. And while it may seem like March 3rd was very far away, we are still working with the Register of Voters Office to receive the certified results for the March 3rd election. The Register of Voters is no doubt delayed, and in fact now is projecting that we will receive the information as now anticipated as April 23rd. When we receive that, we will bring it forward to a May council meeting so that the election results can be certified. And similarly, last week we heard from the California Fair Political Practice Commission that a complaint submitted by former Mayor Patty Mahan for alleged misuse of public resources by myself, Brian Doyle, Hossam Hogag, and Mayor Gilmore was dismissed. This unfounded complaint concerned Measure C ballot measure. And this is significant because twice now these city officials have been accused of using public resources for these type of inappropriate actions, and the findings were unfounded. It is important because staff continues to use high professional practices to keep our community informed and educated about election matters. Now that this is behind us, we can put our full attention on responding to COVID-19 outbreak. We know there will be some challenges on the healthcare front coming up, and as the numbers continue to climb, we are also urging everyone to practice social distancing because as today, when Dr. Cody stated, every contact counts. Each and every contact we have with people outside of our household increases the risk of transmission. Santa Clarans have to continue to stay home and save lives. Meantime, we as a city organization are planning on keeping the lines of communication open with our community partners. We are working regionally to manage this crisis and as cohesively as possible. And just like every contact counts, every person counts. April 1st, tomorrow, is Census Day, which indicates the 2020 census is officially underway. I encourage everyone in our community to be counted. Our federal population-based funding allocations depend on the accurate count, and now more than ever, Santa Clarans deserve to be counted and receive its fair share of support during this crisis. This concludes my update, and I will now open it up for questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much, City Manager, for that very comprehensive update. Let's ask, do we have any city council members that have any comments or questions on City Manager's reports? Councilmember Chahal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager, for the report, and appreciate all the details and constantly following up on these ones. I do have a couple of comments. I got an email and message and several messages regarding farmers market. Can we please update our community? If we are holding the farmers market, we have to strictly follow the social distancing during that period, or I'm not sure what other alternatives we can do that. And the other thing I want to point out, in addition to what you and your team is doing and mayor and council is doing, I would specifically like to recognize Dr. Sarah Cody, our county health officer. I would like to point out that she did such a great job in coordinating all the efforts with the 6 other county health officers and putting shelter in place first in whole of the USA, and that was very foresighted, and I would like to recognize her efforts and leadership in this aspect. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other council members, comments or questions?
Mayor Gilmore, this is Teresa.
Hi, Councilmember O'Neill. Yes.
I'd like to ask City Manager Santana, you mentioned some of the impacts on some of our various sources of revenue. I assume then that, and just so that the community knows, we've kind of had some preliminary looks like at the budget based, it seems like forever ago when we did our council goal setting, and Finance Director Ken Lee did some presentations then. Are we having to massively retool the budget based on the sense that you're getting about where revenues may be going in the near future?
So we will be meeting tomorrow with department heads based on a memo that I put together for them on what the short-term strategies are to begin to stabilize our financial condition. We will be bringing forward a plan as we release the budget, the proposed budget in May. The council will begin to deliberate on that strategy, and that's where we'll have community engagement as we've had in the past. But we wanted to get organized first and prepare our strategies and then put that to writing so the council and the community can engage on that topic. So yes, we will. There's significant changes and new strategies that we'll need to.
Great. Thank you very much.
I also just wanted to take the opportunity to comment on Councilmember Shahal's question. The farmers markets are authorized under the former order. We can confirm that they still remain in the order that was issued today. However, the farmers market needs to put in place a social distancing plan of how it will protect its customers and ensure that the social distancing requirements are in place. So they will have that responsibility to communicate how they're going to be maintaining social distancing while offering a farmers market.
City Manager, when I heard the press conference today from the county, it said the county was going to make available guidelines for grocery stores and others. Do we know if they're available yet? That there were going to be social distancing guidelines?
We will check online. They were putting information out online after the press conference, and we will distribute that through our social media resources as well as our businesses.
So hopefully we can make those available, because I've had several contacts from employees at grocery stores that are concerned about the patterns of shoppers, and when they're physically in the store, they do have concerns. So it'll be wonderful if we can make those available to the grocery stores in the city of Santa Clara so that they have them when they do come out, as well as post them online for farmers markets and others. Okay, thank you. Any other, who is that? Councilmember Davis.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm having problems with this. City Manager, I was wondering when I had asked you about the budget, I think a couple of weeks ago when this all hit, and I was kind of concerned about what we had in reserves and how we were going to go forward. Were you also going to look into that capacity study that we asked for to see what we needed to be for each department, what they needed and what they did not need, or how we would be able to kind of look at what is essential, non-essential, whatever, almost like a puzzle of what is really needed, what is temporarily needed, what is something that we can cut, so that when we look at the budget, we can take a holistic approach as to where we can survive this coronavirus. Was that something that you were planning on doing with that special meeting that we're having?
The capacity study through the January priority session, it was, as my understanding, was focused more on, we're growing. This is a city that's experienced coming from a small town to, becoming larger, and which focus was based on priorities and the existing capacity and how we would absorb and or what's the requirement for resources. We, looking at the capacity study from a different lens, we should look at it from a different lens now. That one is of what are the core services, the essential services that we would want to maintain, as well as how do we address the ongoing shortfall as it becomes clearer to us over the next couple of months. and still provide the quality services. The issues around a growth strategy, once we understand the economy and where it's at post-COVID-19, will become clearer for us, and that's where we can work together. I do want to mention that in our discussion, preliminary discussions with consultants on a capacity study, it's not anything that can be done in a couple of weeks. In fact, because we are a complex and large organization, most consultants said that they would need to do it in various phases in order to provide us with the quality work and really get at the granular level that the council spoke to. And so we still have that work in place, and we can give an update to the council, but the perspective in terms of it being a growth rather than maintaining essential services is really what's changed.
Okay. Okay, because my thinking was, you know, like you said, do it in the reverse, not the growth, but how can we maintain what we have? And you said you were looking at a $13 million deficit, but then you were looking at a potentially more in 2021, 2022. So those were my concerns. Were with the loss of TOT, getting back revenue streams that we have, property taxes. I'm really concerned about how we're going to fund. I think our budget is probably not as crazy as some of the other cities are. I think we might be a little bit well prepared, but at the same time, I'm really concerned about how long this is going to take and how it's going to put, you know, the tasks of our staff, how they're going to handle the capacity, you know, absorb what is happening with less people, or how this is going to turn out. I'm not really sure, but I'm looking forward to what you're going to bring to us at the next meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you. So for the city manager, I just wanted to address the webinar that I participated in today. Well, I was just listening to it, but it was put on by the League of Cities regarding the CARES Act that was recently passed by the Senate and Congress in terms of putting a package together to help the country. And some of that monies will be allocated to the state of California. Is the city manager's office and staff looking at ways that we can, that the city might be able to tap into some of those, that funding, since some of these expenses that have caused this shortfall have had to do with the COVID virus, and because the money is that has been allocated from as a result of this act is to help in that respect.
We are. The good thing is if you recall, we did bring on some lobbyists at the federal and state level who have been keeping us up to date on the many changes and sources, as well as we've begun to have conversations around which agency would be most advantageous to apply for certain funds, particularly through whether funds should be pursued through the school district for our food program, since they're more likely to qualify than the city. And so those discussions have already started. I also want to acknowledge that we had a great meeting today. Director Ken Lee got us all organized with the right resources and the right documents in his role as the EOC finance chief. And we went through with lots of folks on the line and went through how exactly we need to code our time to and all of our activities and expenditures to maximize reimbursements through the federal government for this crisis. And so we're looking at grants, we're working with our lobbyists, as well as we are well trained after that meeting today, and we certainly know the resources to go to so that we maximize reimbursements.
Great. Well, I'm not surprised to know that Ken Lee, as right on top of that as he usually is with everything else. So that's wonderful to know. And I think it's also great to and give kudos to the staff that put together the worker protection, that are working on the worker protection laws to work with our staff and protect them as well. Let me see, there was one other thing that I just wanted to say, but just basically, just thank you to the city staff again for all of their hard work in just keeping the city operational and ahead, during these trying times. I noticed today I was out at the playground. I know we had received some complaints from residents about people still playing on the playgrounds, and I noticed at the playgrounds up here in the north side that there were tape around the playground. So that's really great. People appreciate that, and I want to give a kudos to the residents and the business owners out there that are just even putting themselves on the line in their own way and contributing, to the benefit of the city and the community through these trying times. I think the what's happening right now has really helped people shine in a way that they never thought that they could. So a lot of kudos go out to our community and how they are helping.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Hardy.
Mostly, I just want to tell everyone thank you for all the hard work. Make certain you're taking care of yourselves. This is not an easy time for anyone. And I appreciate everyone's hard work at City Hall and virtually at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. No one else? Okay. I know we're going to show a video about our food distribution for the students, but I just wanted to say that there's so many people out there that are coming forward to help, and so many businesses. Just recently, I was contacted by one of the owners of Tony and Alba's. He's out there delivering pizzas to seniors over 70 years old that aren't able to get out for free. And he's offered some food for the city. Fiorello's, Michael Fiorello has offered food for the city and is out working with food for the Bill Wilson Center. And Kurt and Marguerite at Slice of New York, they're out there donating like crazy and having online chats with everyone to help with a lot of the isolation we're all feeling. And even Chick-fil-A offered some assistance with the city. So people are really coming out of the city and the businesses and the residents to donate or to offer to volunteer. We're trying to now identify the needs in our community so that we can get, especially food, the needs to the community. But I know we're going to show the video. I also want to say that the city entered into something that really isn't one of our core services, which is providing weekend meals for children in the school district and even our seniors some weekend meals. So last Thursday, I was a witness to, as you'll see, I was involved in it as well, but our city staff getting together, I think we had 80 members of our staff and our employees out there. You should have seen this operation delivering the food for the students that are on free and reduced lunch programs at Santa Clara Unified School District that may not have enough food for the weekends. And the need out there is tremendous. And our city just jumped into this program that we've never done before. And it was just like a well-oiled operation in terms of the care and the hygiene and everything that went along with delivering food to the students that are in so much in need. And I was able to talk to some of the families that were picking up food, and it's just incredible and how grateful they are and how grateful we are. The people that were working were from every department in our city, city manager's office, SVP, our parks department. It was just an incredible effort. And most were very happy doing it because you feel like you're giving something back because we all feel so helpless at this time. We're going to be doing it again on Thursday at 4 locations, Wilcox High School, Cabrillo Middle School, the Senior Center, and Don Calajon School in the north side. Also, our Firefighters Foundation, along with our Convention Center food staff, they put together weekend packets for the seniors on Fridays. We've done it 2 Fridays in a row, but our Firefighters Foundation has volunteered their time to help deliver not only the meals to the senior center, but to a lot of homebound seniors that, again, they're not able to get out to the grocery stores, so they're so grateful to get the food and they need it so much. So I know that program has enhanced as well, but I just want to express such huge gratitude to our city and our staff and our city manager for putting this all together, because there was a need and we jumped on it immediately. We were hoping to be the stopgap measure between now and when the county or the state or the federal government jumps in to help us all. We're still waiting for that, but we, in the meantime, want to make sure our seniors and our children and our families are fed in this community. And the school district is taking care of that during the weekdays as well. And they've passed out, I think, 29,000 meals yesterday and 30,000 the week before. So they're doing, their part as well. So we're all trying to, come in together. So it's also very important that if you can get takeout food in our community, that you go to our restaurants and order takeout food. Because they're small businesses, they're struggling to survive. Many have lost, most, if not all of their businesses. So I think we had advertised takeout Tuesday. It should be takeout Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as far as I'm concerned, too, for those who don't like to cook like me. So please, whatever you can do to help patronize our restaurants in the city. We're hoping that they make it through and come out, the other end before their assistance, kicks in as well. And last but not least, I know the city manager mentioned it. I want to thank Councilmember O'Neill and Councilmember Watanabe. You've been with me on the front lines at the senior food distribution. Teresa O'Neill was monitoring cars as they came in. I know she has parking lot experience, but thank you, Councilmember O'Neill. You do well on the streets as well, and helping to pass out meals and open trunks and deliver them to seniors. So thank you, Teresa and Kathy, for your help as well. So I guess we can go to the video now, which is a video. Is it the city manager, the video on the student lunch, weekend lunch giveaway?
It's a video of us in action last Thursday, and you are narrating it. And I just want to remind that this program is available and open to all Santa Clara youth.
Oh, wonderful.
All right, let's watch the video.
Hi, I'm Santa Clara Mayor Lisa Gilmore here at Cabrillo Middle School. We're kicking off our Healthy Meals Santa Clara weekend program. This program is designed to provide healthy meals for children during the weekend days. We don't want anyone to go hungry in the city of Santa Clara, and in partnership with the school district and the city and some of our partners, we're putting together meals to be distributed for the weekend. As you can see, we have about 80 city employees here that are working really hard to put the meals together and pass them out. I am joined here with Councilmember Teresa O'Neill and Councilmember Kathy Watanabe out at Calajon School. Our city council saw a need to fill. We knew that our children were getting 5 days of meals from the school district, and we saw that there was a gap. They need to eat and they need to be fed during the weekends. So the city quickly, through our city management and our employees, got together and put together this program. So we're excited. We'd like you to come back next Thursday as well. Anybody that needs these meals for their children that are signed up with the school district.
And we've set up this process so that we can keep our community healthy and safe. We have a commodity point of distribution here, delivering meals out to the children and seniors in our community. So if you're part of the process, you just follow the cones on in. We'll ask you to pop the trunk, and there'll be one person who's only handling food and one person who's only touching the cars.
Thank you, staff, and thanks to our communications department as well for putting that together and getting the word out. As our city manager said, this Thursday from 11 to, pardon me, is 11 to 12:30?
30 to 3:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. What time is it, city manager? That,
2 o'clock to 3:30.
oh, 2 to 3:30 for the children's meals, 2 to 3:30 on Thursday, and then Friday, the senior meals are 11
It's 11 to 12:30.
11 to 12:30 at the senior center. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments from anyone before we move on? Okay, all right. Thank you for all those reports and the questions and comments from the council. We're going to move on to continuances and exceptions. Do we have any continuances and exceptions? We only have one item on the agenda, but let's hope we can hear it. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public presentations. Do we have any public presentations, Assistant City Clerk? No public presentations and no one downstairs that wants to speak on that issue. Okay, we will then move on to public hearing general business, and this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. This is the opportunity for the public comment on the 20 to 25 draft consolidated action plan and fiscal year 2021 draft annual action plan for U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development funds. And I see we have Jonathan here. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Jonathan Veach, Housing Division Manager. I'm here with Eric Calleja, our Federal Grants Manager. And tonight we're presenting a draft of our 5-year consolidated plan and a draft of our annual action plan for the use of our federal CDBG and home funds. For those who aren't familiar with our federal grant programs, the City of Santa Clara receives annual entitlement funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The purpose of this funding is to benefit low-income households by providing affordable housing and community development services. In order to receive the funds on an annual basis, the city is required to develop a 5-year consolidated plan, also known as the CON plan, to determine the city's high-level housing needs over a 5-year cycle. HUD also requires that the city creates an annual action plan each year to specifically address how the city will use these funds to benefit low-income households in the community. Today's recommended actions are to note and file any public comment on the draft plans, to approve both draft plans, and to direct staff to incorporate all public comments into the final versions, which we'll bring back to council on May 5th. Here's a summary of the key dates related to our CON plan and annual action plan submission for HUD. Community engagement on the CON plan started back in October of last year through surveys and numerous stakeholder meetings. Tonight's meeting is the first public hearing to review the draft plans. As I said, we'll return on May 5th with the final version of the plans, and ultimately we'll submit them to HUD on our due date of May 15th. So HUD has not extended the due date for submission of our annual action plan and CON plan. Some cities have reached out individually to request extensions. At this point, we haven't seen any reason to extend it. We want to get the funds as soon as possible so we can get them out into the community. So at this point, we're on track to still meet our May 15th submission deadline. So now we'll take a closer look at the consolidated action plan. City was part of a collaborative effort with the County of Santa Clara and 7 other cities to create the regional CON plan. County took the lead on the initiative and entered into a contract with Michael Baker International, who is the lead consultant that guided much of our community engagement and the data collection that's in the CON plan. Originally, we hoped to have a representative from Michael Baker here tonight, but due to the current circumstances, they weren't able to attend. But that being said, the main purpose of the CON plan is really to provide a framework for the high-level community development goals that we're going to address through the annual action plans. And the CON plan, although it's a dense document with lots of data, the main takeaway is that our high-level goals in the CON plan have remained unchanged from the previous 5-year cycle. So these goals, as you can see here, include affordable housing, public services, which include senior services, services for domestic violence survivors, and emergency services, homelessness, public facilities, which include our ADA improvements and improvements to some of our nonprofit facilities, and fair housing, which include tenant-landlord mediation and counseling services. A summary of our community engagement efforts related to the comp plan include our regional community engagement meetings held at 3 different locations throughout the county, 2 community-hosted meetings, stakeholder focus groups, pop-up events at our Art and Wine Festival and the Santa Clara Farmers Market, an online survey where we had about 100 respondents, and 2 public hearings, including tonight and the one we'll do on May 5th. Now to the annual action plan. As I mentioned earlier, the annual action plan provides a more detailed summary of the actions, activities, and specific resources that we'll use each year to address our comp plan goals. Our 2021 estimated resources include roughly $1.6 million of home funds, $1.6 million of CDBG funds, and then we supplement those with approximately $600,000 of local funds. So those top-level numbers, those resources are a combination of new money that comes in from HUD, estimated program income for the coming year, and also prior year's funding that was not spent and will be rolled over to the new action plan year. If we're focused just on new money in 2021, we're anticipating $1.4 million total of new money. That's comprised of approximately $400,000 of home funds, and that amounts to about an 8% increase year over year, and approximately $1 million of CDBG funds, which amounts to about a 5% increase year over year. So looking at the home funds, and in general, almost all of our federal HUD spending related to affordable housing is concentrated in 2 programs. Related to home, our tenant-based rental assistance program is our core program. And then related to CDBG, our Neighborhood Conservation and Improvement Program, NCIP, is our core program. So considering that the comp plan goals haven't changed from the prior cycle, we're anticipating operating the same programs and services going into the next comp plan cycle. In the 2021 program year, we anticipate investing almost 93% of the total home resources to our tenant-based rental assistance program, or TBRA, which is targeted at families who are either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. In summary, the TBRA program provides rental assistance for up to 12 months to families who are at risk of homelessness. These rental subsidies are then supplemented with local funds for case management and housing services. And the way the rental assistance works is that the subsidy covers it covers the difference between 30% of the tenant's monthly income versus the fair market rent, similar to a Section 8 voucher. For CDBG in 2021 program year, we anticipate investing 65% of our total CDBG resources to the NCIP rehab program. CDBG is a much more flexible spending source, and so that's a lower percentage because we also take 20% of our CDBG grant to cover admin costs. And we also allocate 15% of our CDBG funds to our local public service agencies. For those who aren't familiar with the NCIP program, NCIP is our single-family rehab program. Since 1976, we've helped rehab over 1,500 single-family homes in Santa Clara. The rehab scopes focus on health and safety issues, making sure that homes are up to building code requirements, and very often addressing accessibility for seniors in our community. The program's mission is to help improve the safety and beauty of our neighborhoods through low-interest capital loans, where we defer both principal and interest for up to 20 years for low-income qualified homeowners. And then finally, related to our CDBG public service agencies, I'll just note quickly, we were on a 2-year grant cycle, which expires in June of this year, so we'll need new agreements starting July 1st. In January, we issued a NOFA for public service agency proposals, and applications were due in February of this year. Staff evaluated the proposals, and our funding recommendations are included in Attachment A. Typically, tonight, we get to hear from many of our public service agencies, but due to the shelter in place, we've asked them to submit letters. So attached to the staff report, you'll see the funding request letters. And then finally, the last section, this isn't included in the staff report because a lot of this news has been coming out over the last few days. But I did want to highlight potential changes related to COVID-19 federal stimulus funds that could potentially impact our final action plan when we come back on May 5th. So as many of you know, Congress reached an agreement for a $2 trillion stimulus package to respond to the coronavirus pandemic. Of these funds, an estimated $5 billion of CDBG funds will be directed to cities and states. We know that Santa Clara will receive additional CDBG funds in 2021 related to the stimulus package. However, at this point, we're not sure exactly how much we'll receive. But what's exciting is that the bill does provide broad authority for the HUD Secretary to waive certain requirements in order to expedite the use of CDBG funds, and it allows local jurisdictions to use these funds for emergency rent assistance. Staff is estimating that we'll likely have around $1 million available for the City of Santa Clara's rent assistance program, using CDBG funds to augment our recently enacted eviction moratorium. After the moratorium ends, we know that a lot of households will have significant arrears, and ultimately we'll need a rent assistance program to make sure those families aren't entering into homelessness. Over the coming weeks, we'll get more information from HUD, and staff will be working together to put together the frameworks of a program that we can bring to Council on May 5th. So in conclusion, staff's recommendation is to note and file any public comment on the draft comp plan and draft action plan, to approve the draft comp plans and action plans, and direct staff to incorporate the public comments into the final versions. And then we've added this additional recommendation to direct staff to implement a rent assistance program using the CDBG funds to augment our recently enacted eviction moratorium. That concludes the presentation, and we're now available for questions.
Thank you for that report. I had a question. You answered half of it already, but the funds that we're getting, especially the federal funds, are we certain that we're going to get them, that they won't, pay us additional funds here, but then take any away here? I mean, are we certain we're going to get those funds?
As certain as we are in a given year. So these funds have been approved, so we've gotten the confirmation from HUD.
Okay.
The funds actually don't hit the account until typically August. So we're never 100% certain until the funds are in the account, but they have been approved, and then the additional funds have been approved. So I think their budget has been approved, and that we're fairly certain we'll get the money this year.
And so we're just hoping we get money in addition to that, because the need is going to be so much bigger than it already is.
So we're certain that there's CDBG funds included in the stimulus package, and that they'll be allocated to different states.
Okay.
And so if we use the methodology of what we typically get relative to the state's allocation, and we apply that to the new stimulus package, we can anticipate around $1 million of additional COVID-related stimulus funding. Now, they can use a different methodology to allocate funds, but for now, we're thinking around $1 million.
So we're going to be very proactive and have a program ready so that when we do get those funds, we'll be able to look at rental funds assistance.
That's the hope. So typically, it's slow to get the HUD funds. And so in the typical process, we wouldn't get the funds until maybe July or August. But that's one of the reasons we want to stay on our timeline and not delay our submission of our reports. What we did read in kind of the initial summary of the package was that they would change some of the restrictions and let us use local funds and then reimburse our local funds with HUD funds later in the year, which typically they don't allow. So if that's the case, then we can move pretty quickly with the program in the coming months, and then we would reimburse our local funds later.
So we, get that assistance out there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's good news of all this bad news. All right, let me see. We have Councilmember Davis. You have questions, comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Jonathan, I have to commend you. This was an excellent report, and under the staff recommendation, I don't have that item number 3, which helps out the people in our community. That's awesome. Glad to hear that. I would love to make the motion to give you your time to get this in motion, so that when we get out of this coronavirus, that we are able to help the people in need. So once again, thank you for the report. I know you're doing a heck of a job there. This is awesome news, finally, that we're going to be able to sustain what we have, and then hopefully a little bit more. So I wanted to thank you, but Mayor, when it's ready, I'd like to make the recommendation and add on that item that I do not have on my staff report here.
Okay, I'll come back to you when we close. First, we close the public hearing after we get all the comments in, but not yet. I'll come back to you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hardy.
Thank you. I had 3 very specific questions. First off, you mentioned, Jonathan, you mentioned Section 8 funds and housing and talked about CDBG. Is there any overlap there? I didn't see anything in the report. I was curious about that.
No, sorry, that might have been a bit confusing. So the Section 8 vouchers are issued through the County Housing Authority, And we don't do that at the city level. When I mentioned Section 8, I was referring to our tenant-based rental assistance program, and I was comparing it to Section 8 in the sense that our subsidy is the difference between 30% of the tenant's income and the fair market rent. And so that's how Section 8 is structured as well. But it's a different program. Section 8 kind of has an indefinite timeline on it. Once somebody's receiving that, it's forever unless the government would kind of suspend the program. Our program uses home funds, and it's a 12-month program. So it's a shorter term meant to be transitional, get people back on their feet within 12 months. So it's a different program, but in some ways it operates similarly to Section 8.
Thank you. I appreciate that because that wasn't really clear. Also, on page 4 of our report, there are about 6, 7 different numbers that are highlighted in yellow that says numbers highlighted are subject to change between the draft and the final. I'm wondering how much change you might see in that before we see the final. Are there any concerns with everything going on?
No, just generally, there's just small incremental changes to the numbers. We don't expect any substantial changes. We just keep that in there because there is an outside possibility. We just have to tweak numbers. But generally, it's a couple $1,000s shifted around in kind of various spaces.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Last question. Reading through the very long report, there were a lot of numbers and a lot of information. And I wondered if that information was showing our needs and things like that. Was that from census numbers? There was a lot of information that isn't usually available. And if that was from the census, that tells us why we all need to fill ours out. But I was wondering where that information, I didn't see it at the end. There was nothing in the report that said where the information was from.
Yes. So
on housing numbers.
most of the data HUD makes available through kind of a HUD data portal. And the source of their data is the ACS, the American Community Survey data. And I think that's put out every 3 years or 5 years. But so HUD makes the data available for us through their web portal. It is really important information. It is important to get the census data complete because this informs our programs and our policies. And we only get $1.4 million of new HUD money, so it's hard to address everything in the comp plan with that amount of money. But we do, since we only do this report once every 5 years, we definitely use it as a resource when we're looking at other programs and policies to go back and kind of comb through that data and see how we can kind of better inform the decisions we're making.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Now I know where that comes from.
Okay. Other questions, Vice Mayor?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe?
Calling on me.
Is that the dog?
No. I'm having trouble hearing you. Okay, my name just popped up on the screen. I guess it must be me then. Okay. Thank you both, Eric, and thank you very much for the report. Let me see. I had a question along the lines of the census as well. When I was listening to the League of Cities presentation today, and they talked about how money would be determined based on a census, and they were hoping the census from 2019 would be better as opposed to 2018. Have you talked about that?
No, we didn't address it in the report. We're kind of speculating on how we think they might allocate the stimulus funds, but I don't think there's much clarity on that just yet.
Okay. And then regarding the stimulus money that we do hope to receive, is there any way that we could borrow from the resources that we currently have available and then pay back once we do receive whatever stimulus money is allocated to us?
So that would be the best case scenario. Typically, HUD doesn't let you spend local funds and reimburse after the fact. The sense we're getting is that they're streamlining a lot of the requirements to allow money to get out quicker. And so, yes, we do have money that's been allocated to affordable housing projects that won't be drawn down until 2021. And so those funds can be used now if HUD does, in fact, waive the requirement. So that's our hope, but we'll wait to kind of receive confirmation on that.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much again. Thank you for your hard work. Look forward to the other reports.
Thank you. Councilmember Chahal?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for the detailed report. And I do have some comments to make. Basically, looking at the detailed report, I was looking at the detailed report. It mentions that almost 30% of our households, that's a pretty big number, 34% of our households have a cost burden housing. And out of that, like I noticed, 20% households, 8,725 experience one housing problem. And 14%, that is 6,370 households, are paying more than 50% of their income. So keeping in view the market, rental market is so high over here, do you think we have some opportunities to get higher home funds or CDBG funds versus we have, like, how can we get more funds to accommodate the high rental market over here?
It's a really good question. Typically, I think the formula that HUD uses is based on population size. Unfortunately, they don't adjust for cost of living or regional housing markets. That is definitely one of the challenges we have here. We do, as city manager mentioned, we did retain kind of legal and political advocacy services, but I don't think this is something that's typically we advocate for more money from HUD because there's a very kind of set methodology they use, but that is a good idea.
Okay. And
Councilmember Chahal? Hello?
yes.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have one more comment, Mayor. As regards the $1.5 million for the TBRA, is that going only to the 40 families, or are we distributing it to more than 40?
The absolute number of families is hard to predict exactly because the subsidy is 30% of their income, so it depends on what types of incomes they're coming in with. Sometimes we have families with zero income, and so the subsidy has to pay for the full rent. Sometimes you have families that are making pretty decent subsidies and pretty decent incomes, and the subsidy amounts are smaller. And so that impacts how many families ultimately we can serve. We look at the averages of kind of the incomes and the household sizes that we receive in the prior year and try to forecast that out. Majority of the funds go directly to rental assistance. So the case management and housing services that we fund through the TBRA program are through local funds. And so I think one of the slides was showing 93% of the home funds go directly to rental subsidies. So like I said, we use prior year's data to forecast 40 families, but ultimately it depends on what fair market rent is and what the household incomes are.
Okay. And do you think we can use part of TBRA funds for our COVID rental assistance program, in addition to what we are trying to get from the HUD down the line?
So typically it's been very challenging to do rental assistance programs with HUD money. So from what we've read, the restrictions, well, number one, the additional funding we're getting is CDBG funds, not home funds. And the restrictions that they're easing are related to the CDBG programming. The home funds, we're using it all, and it still is dedicated to the homeless population. And so I do suspect if there's a homeless family that comes into our TBRA program, they could definitely have been impacted from the COVID-19. So I think the approach has been keep doing what we're doing on the TBRA side because it's helping families at risk of homelessness, and there'll be more of those. And then with the additional fundings we get through CDBG, really try to leverage a local rent assistance program.
And my last comment is regarding the option to direct the staff to implement the rental assistance program using CDGB. I think it's a very good proactive step, and I would fully support that additional directive on this one. Thank you very much. I appreciate your report.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jonathan and Eric, for the report. It's kind of, in one way, I mean, there's a lot of work that's gone into it and everything, but in a way, it's telling that the priorities for the strategic planning for the last consolidated plan are the same that they are now in the 5 categories. And, sometimes it almost, feels a little disheartening because it's like, are we making progress with the challenges that we face in this area? And I know some of the things that Councilmember Shahal was referring to that I know in the past, and I think this was before you arrived, we made an attempt to like buy some houses, I think using some home funds, and we were going to rehab them. And we had gotten, I think at that time, HUD had raised the levels, and they were like, when we were getting outbid on even just like total almost tear down fixer upper houses. And I remember the comments were coming back from like HUD, like, what are you people doing out there? I mean, it was like they were total, wow, there was some lack of awareness as to what it would actually cost around here to do any housing. I mean, that's what the discouraging element about the, just the what the odds we're facing. But what I wanted to specifically mention was, in light of the COVID situation, and some of the categories that are mentioned in the report are things like, victims of domestic violence and youth that are becoming homeless, and elderly people with increasing disabilities, and some of these situations that I know I had a brief conversation with Assistant Chief Winter last week when we were doing the food distribution. And it's like, we know that some of the things that are going to potentially, if this shelter at home goes on for at least another month, there might be more problems with, say, things like domestic violence, or say youth that are finding themselves without a place to stay. And some of those things that have been kind of some of the more niche areas within our plan. So, I mean, do you see that we might need to, or there would be a way potentially to address those types of issues, that might be, behavioral health concerns that might be coming up as a result of the situation that we're in right now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So one of the challenges with our HUD programs is that the requirements are a lot, and so it's not tied to the amount of funding you receive. So my point is, the work and the report that we have to put together for our $1.4 million will be very similar to what San Jose has to put together for their allocations, which might be 5 or 10 times more. And so the challenge I think that you're addressing is there's so many issues that come up in the comp plan that we need to address. And it's difficult with only $1.4 million to really address all of those different issues. And so the challenge for us has been to really be efficient with our HUD programming, is trying not to have too many programs, because it takes a lot of staff, but also there's a lot of requirements and restrictions and a steep learning curve every time you enter into a new HUD, CDBG, or home program. And so we've made a lot of progress with both our NCIP and our TBRA program, creating policies and procedures and really refining and improving the programs on a kind of day-to-day basis. And so I think we're excited about leveraging that and moving forward. What we have to do is look at all of the feedback in the comp plan and help use that to inform all of the other things we're doing with affordable housing projects and other programs. And to some of the issues that you alluded to, so there's a slide, I don't know if you're able to see it, which outlines some of the specific feedback we received in our Santa Clara survey. And so to address youth services or mental health issues, as you mentioned, we typically do that through our public service grant agreements. And so on attachment A, you'll see a series of local public service agencies who we fund with CDBG monies. So Bill Wilson is a good example. They do a lot of youth and homeless services in the city, and we do fund them and partner with them. So it's kind of a balance, but generally we get to the more nuanced specific needs through our public service agencies and supporting them and allocating CDBG funds. And then we just try either partnering with the county or through other programs to address some of the other needs.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. That was wonderful. I don't see any other council comments. We're going to now, this is a public hearing, so we are going to the public, and we actually have a public member here. Pilar Furlong, if you'd like to come forward, please. In a second. Okay, he's leaving now. You can come. Okay. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Gilmore, City Council members. I'm Pilar Furlong. I'm the Chief Community Resources Officer with Bill Wilson Center. Bill Wilson Center is a recipient of CDBG funds for our counseling program and a homelessness prevention program that we operate here in the city for students and their families. I was very happy to see that we were recommended for funding again in the next cycle. But actually, I was here this evening to speak more in general about CDBG funding, because as we move into the next cycle, as you just heard, there's probably going to be an increased amount of CDBG funding coming through to the cities because of the increased need, I think, that we're going to see in response to COVID-19 pandemic. And I just wanted to urge the council to follow the staff's recommendation and really put a prioritization for housing and rental assistance for those that are homeless or extremely low income here in Santa Clara. For those who are living paycheck to paycheck, the loss of employment due to the COVID-19 requirements or government orders, it's been devastating. We're already seeing that as an influencer on the clients that Bill Wilson Center serves, and we know we're going to continue to see new clients, especially as people realize over the next few months it's going to be harder and harder to even find work because so many industries are pretty much shutting down. So I, again, was very happy to hear the report because I was almost positive more funding was going to come through the stimulus, but I wasn't positive. So if it is, I would just say when it comes before you, I really encourage you to put the bulk of that into rental assistance or housing programs for those who are extremely low income or homeless. Bill Wilson Center is doing great work to get these residents housed, but there are a lot of other community providers also who are also doing good work to help these people. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, and I did speak to your director I think it was last week. It felt like 2 months ago. And she said that the need is incredible at the Bill Wilson Center in particular because other agencies were like referring a lot of clients to the Bill Wilson Center, especially for housing and other issues that is so challenged right now. So first of all, thank you so much to the Bill Wilson Center for what you do. It's pretty amazing.
We are up and running. We are up and running and increasing. And actually, thank you for the recommendation. We made the connection with some of the hotels in the city and are utilizing that resource.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. Okay, is there any other public? Do we have any public downstairs? Okay, Councilmember Davis, are you ready to close the public hearing? With the motion?
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Motioned and second to close the public hearing. Are there any final comments from any council members? Seeing none, we're going to then have a roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe.
Yes.
Councilmember Shahal.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan and Eric, for coming. Thank you for putting this together. And we'll see you again beginning of May with our proposed rental assistance program with a lot of money from the government. Thank you, we hope. Thank you. And thank you, Pilar, for coming as well.
The next motion? That was to close.
Oh, was that just the public
That was to
hearing?
close.
Oh, my gosh, don't leave yet, sorry. Is there a motion for staff recommendation? I'm way ahead of myself. Councilmember Davis? It's just these motions take a long time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. No, now we can.
Okay, I'm having a heck of a time with this audio. Okay, I would like to make a motion, staff recommendation. 1, note and file public comment on the 2020-2025 draft consolidated action plan, fiscal year 2020 to 2021 draft annual action plan for U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Funds, CDBG, and Home. 2, to approve the draft 2020 to 2025 consolidation plan and fiscal year 2020-2021 draft annual action plan, and direct staff to incorporate all public comments into the final versions to be presented to City Council on May 5th, 2020, prior to submitting to HUD by May 15, 2020. And the addition, number 3, direct staff to implement a rental assistant program using CDBG funds to augment its recently enacted eviction moratorium. That's my motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on that. If we can have a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe.
Yes.
Councilmember Shahal.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. You can all go now. Sorry about that. We do appreciate the reports and the public testimony. Okay, next we have reports of members and special committees. Do we have any members that would like, council members that would like to say anything? I know we're on delay, but I'll give another couple seconds. Okay, seeing none, city manager, executive director report.
I have no report.
All right, which leads us to our adjournment. Before we adjourn, I do want to give a special thanks to our city manager, Deanna Santana, and our director of emergency services, Lisa Schoenthal, for all the good work and hard work. I'm hoping both of you keep yourselves healthy and safe while you're doing all this good work on behalf of our community. We have a lot of faith in you, so thank you so much. We all appreciate what you're doing on behalf of the city of Santa Clara. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Hardy.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Watanabe.
Yes.
Councilmember Shahal.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, council members. That passes unanimously and the meeting's adjourned.